Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 34th webinar. Last week, we talked about leveraging influencer marketing. There are going to be some topics in here that might relate to last week's topic because we're talking about social media and that landscape. So if you want to watch kind of something that will add more information to what you hear today, then that's another good video to base it off on. That's going to be on our YouTube page, more of which you're very welcome to go check out. But today we're going to particularly talk about social media advertising and how that can help you with your print-on-demand store or your art store or whatever store you have. Um, of course, we're seeing this from the viewpoint of us who help with people who own art stores in particular, but also do print on demand. So we'll be going in from that perspective. And just kind of as a simple introduction, there are various forms that you can promote yourself on social media. It's a matter of whether or not you want to put ad money towards using those social media ads or not. Of course, when you're starting out, it's always a good idea to kind of test the waters on your own social media platform, not putting in much money into your ad spending just yet, just kind of for you to gauge your current audience as it is before going into it. Another thing to be mindful of as you're, developing yourself as someone who wants to get sales on your store eventually through social media is just doing some testing prior to putting ad money towards it. So if you're posting your own stuff on your own social media and you're seeing some things are doing well, some things are garnering interactions, likes, comments, and the like, then probably more towards what makes something of that post special. Otherwise, if you feel like there's not that much interactions, then from there, it's kind of worth testing what you're going to have there from there on. So we could get right into it. That's just a small introduction, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So give me one moment. So we can get into just the basic benefits and opportunities that come with using social media advertisements. So again, once you kind of have a good gauge of what you want to post on your ads, and you kind of figured out, okay, this is the type of ad I want to use, type of video content. We could get more into those details later, but here are just some of the benefits once you start using social media advertisements. Of course, it helps increase brand visibility. Um, Regarding that, social media is a great place to kind of promote yourself because a lot of people go there for leisure. And as so long as you kind of put your ad that makes sense in the environment or the place and where you advertise, then, your customers or potential customers can feel at ease and feel like they're not being hard sold something. That is, if you are cognizant of what type of ad that you're going to put out and make sure that it's compatible with your target audience. Um, some great places to advertise are ones that, after talking to some folks and also looking online, is Facebook tends to be really well as Instagram. Twitter, not so much these days. As you guys know, there has been some significant changes. So advertising on there is really kind of flipping a coin in that aspect. It can either go really well or not so well. Um, of course, if later in time it becomes a bit more continual and a bit more stable, then it's worth checking out Twitter as a possible place to advertise. But at this moment in time, it is kind of volatile, and I've heard some, stuff from people who just say it's not the best place to advertise. Another place to advertise, which might not seem as much as a forefront social media place as one would imagine, is Pinterest. And so Pinterest, I know that for some folks, they might use it themselves for their own ideas. You might use it for your own references, and it's a great source to get imagery from, but it's also a great place to advertise. Um, Even from my own perspective, I have been sold by something that was on Pinterest because they knew how to utilize the space correctly. They knew what people tend to go to Pinterest for. And as they market themselves on Pinterest, they're very aware of how to make themselves feel seamless amongst the photos that might be related to their product. So if you ever have looked at, Pinterest for home decor items, then having imagery or art prints audience there might make sense for you. And if you tend to already have a large captive audience of people who primarily are looking to your place to get home decor items, then it's worth checking out Pinterest for advertisement. The next point is targeted advertising. And so if you ever use Google Ads or maybe ads on other websites, you kind of know that, you can gauge a demographic, sure, but sometimes it might not be as concise or as specific as what you might have seen in social media advertisement campaigns, if you will. So for social media such as Facebook and Instagram, they're really good at pinpointing a target audience compared to other forms of advertisement. So you're allowed to choose demographic, location, general age, probably even look into types of interest as well and hobbies. So you could get really specific, and that could help, yield a really good return on ads. So if you have such a pinpoint um, options as social media provides, then it's a great place to start, especially if you're still debating whether or not you want to use Google Ads or use social media ads. And I think, at least for social media, it's a great place to start at the very least. It also helps you figure out what type of ads work for you and how much money then you want to put thereafter into Google Ads. Um, Another great benefit to advertising on social media is that you'll get a gauge of interactions. They help you figure out how people receive it from the forefront based on likes, comments, maybe responses on polls, um, click-throughs. And so it's a great place to kind of gauge that interaction and customer um, engagement. As for traffic, again, you could definitely look at the click-through. Um, engagement as well as figure out what type of links you want to put in that ad and maybe in relation, like, do you want to have the ad linked to your social media account? Do you want it to directly link to a product? Do you want it to directly link to your homepage? So, as long as you have a clear objective of what you want to have presented for the ad, driving traffic from those social media websites to whatever you need to have it driven to, um, you could also gauge those numbers really well using the back end of those advertisement facilities, such as, Ad Manager with Facebook and Instagram. Um, this is more related to kind of like I think a couple webinars ago, where we just talked about how you can encourage customers to also utilize or make content for you, and you could also use that content to then use it for advertisement. So that's just one of the ways you can look at ways to make ads, which is work in conjunction either with a loyal customer or someone who is very well known and probably has a niche audience that you can work with. And then if they seem to bode well with that type of ad, then it would make sense then to use that user generated content to then share with the rest of the audience, if you will, via ads. Influencer partnerships, again, is another great way to utilize those ads. And by working with influencers, maybe influencers who you probably have not worked with before, ones who have a very like-minded or similar audience to that of yours. Um, Working with people who might have a better sense of a lifestyle presence than what would be from other places, such as, your own social media presence. Say you're more so about your products, more so about your business, then it's great to work with someone who tends to sell personality at the forefront more than anything else. And usually people then have recognizability with that person. And so when you use that as a Google ad, then that could bring in a different type of engagement that you might have not seen without the influencer. Um, and of course, with the benefits of social media ads is you get to see the insights and the information right then and there, more so readily than other advertisement campaigns. And so I think it's good for you, especially if you're looking for short and quick reads on your ads. Um, Social media is pretty easy and pretty pretty easy to navigate in that aspect, especially if you want to do small batches of tests in like a 1 or 2 week turnaround time and kind of gauge what you feel about that type of ad. It's a great place to do testing as well. Another part of it is that it's very cost effective. As a general idea, people who tend to utilize marketing on all forefronts say that social media tends to be the more quick and easy type of advertisement available. And not to say that you shouldn't make it quick and easy or there shouldn't be research done beforehand, but more so it's probably the one that's a bit more economical and also easier to utilize in comparison to other ads such as Google Ads. Okay. Let me go to the next slide. And so when you're doing or not Google, when you're doing social media ads specifically, there are just some key items to look into before, you decide to start doing your advertisements. And the first thing is to define your target audience. And by defining your target audience specifically, you might use your follower count or you might use your customer list. Either way, you want to figure out gender, age, location, general income, general education, and overall general occupation. That could look like blue collar, white collar, people who work in the industry, people who tend to be stay-at-home parents, things of that sort. You want to figure out from there, like what type of audience you already have. Therefore, you'll figure out who already is engaged with you at the beginning and how can you get people like those people who already engaged with you to then capture more in your ads on social media. From there, you want to definitely segment your group because you're not going to just have one type of audience. You're going to have people with different interests, different ideas, different ages and behaviors. And so for you to put it only as one audience could kind of limit how you then advertise. And we'll talk more about testing in different demographics, but for the most part, you kind of want to define at least two, at the very least, types of audiences, and it could look very much like advertising towards people who tend to work from home versus people who tend to, have a bit more active lifestyle. That could just be two very general things, but at the very least, you can then figure out how can I advertise to those customers specifically, and as a result, we'll be capturing more audiences there out. There's also the possibility of also creating test audiences who might not be your target demographic or people who have um, bought from your store before, but it's a great place, at least on social media, to then maybe figure out if you want to target a new audience that you haven't had previous experience with, just for the sake of testing and seeing how that works. Okay, and then of course, utilizing interest-based targeting as you're further refining your audience and figuring out, okay, what does my audience look like? It's worth looking into your customers, doing some quick examples, if you will. So if you have a couple or a handful of people who follow you and you notice that they tend to engage a lot with your products as it is, go check out their page, check out who they're interacting with as well, and what are they posting? What do they tend to have their likes centered around? Who are they following? And it's kind of like just following their behaviors and kind of creating a person out of that one follower, and figuring out, well, how can I advertise to Sue, who likes all my posts, enjoys all my art, has purchased from me before. What is she like and what is she into? And how can I then find other Sues in the world? And will my ad appeal to someone like her? So that's just one way to kind of get your toes dipped into this idea of social media ads. Um, and then employing behavioral targeting, by this we mean looking into their browsing history, purchase intent, content engagement interactions. So this is more so from your website, less so than from social media. So you could get a lot of information if you do have some tracking features on your website. We did talk about this a couple webinars ago of just making sure that as long as you have the user's permission, available to you. It depends on the state and it depends on the country, but for the most part, it's a good it's a good idea and just good housekeeping to let customers know that their behaviors are being tracked on the website. However, it's very useful because while some people might decline on that offer, people who do allow for cookies or allow for, tracking behavior on during their time on your website, it will be very useful for you to kind of know where they tend to land on the most, what in parts of the product they tend to kind of gravitate towards, where are the hot spots of your website, that is where their mouses tend to hover around a lot. And it'll give you just a good idea of like where they tend to be more interested in and what they tend to linger on the most. So from there, maybe create an ad outside of that and be like, okay, well, they tend to lean towards this mock-up that I made specifically for this product, and they tend to enjoy this specific image. Now you could decide whether or not you want to advertise that image, say your bestseller, as just an example. Um, from there, you can definitely start combining the demographics with the behavior. So if you notice that, this customer demographic tends to buy this product, or this other customer demographic tends to kind of leave at the checkout point before making a purchase, then you could kind of gauge whether how you want to make your ads and how you want to either make solutions or how to enhance those types of behaviors from your website onto social media. And then, of course, this will be a running theme. Testing and optimizing from here on will be very important because while you figure out your demographic one day, it isn't to say that the next month or in a couple months' time, your audience is going to look different or your audience's behavior is going to look different. And if so, then what were the components that created that change? And if so, how can then you reinvent some of your ads or reimagine some of your advertisements to then further appeal to what has been working and what has been useful in the journey so far? So here are just some ways you can make your ads seem really good, especially if you're starting from the ground up. Um, and this is maybe your first time thinking about social media advertising. Here are just some points that I would like to cover for this. The first one is focusing on high quality visuals. By that, I mean very literally. So just thinking about making sure that your images look really high resolution and that your products look very detailed. What you don't want to do is just upload whatever mock-up you have on your website onto an ad and the product looks really small in the ad. You want to make sure it's the focal point, as well as also making sure it looks good within the mock-up itself or within the image that it's in itself. Um, Another great thing to include is showcasing the product variations, only because it's as you're casting your net into the great place of social media with your ads, you want to make sure that at least the net you're casting allows for new customers or potential customers to see the, you know, all of the products that might be available under that one, image, for example. So if you have a store that offers framed prints and mugs and maybe canvas, then you want to show maybe the image or images on those three products through a scroll type of advertisement, or show it through how many different colors are available of a said product. And it's just things of like that, because while some customers may be like, oh, well, I like this in green, some people might like it in blue. So just making sure that, your variations make sense and also look good and you feel like could appeal to a massive audience. Because ultimately, that's what will be happening with these ads, is that while they are concise, they will be reaching a lot of people. So you want to make sure that the net you cast is very appealing and could appeal to different audiences as well. Um, as for using dynamic ad formats, this is either GIFs, video ads, or interactive elements that you could include in your own ad. Um, Consider videos that show demonstrations, maybe behind the scenes, tutorials. Um, Animations is great and transitions that look very interesting and appealing. All of this helps make your ad just feel a bit more punchy at the end of the day and makes it feel a bit more alive. So with your ads, having some form of movements, either video, GIF, or scrolling feature, these are just some of the ways that could make it a bit more interactive. Um, and ultimately, also moving on to the next one, you want to make sure that it's good for mobile, if not more ideal for mobile. So, while you're making your ad campaign, you're probably most likely making it on your computer. Make sure to do a lot of testing prior to that on your phone to see how it's going to look like on the phone specifically. Because, like with all things, most people tend to use their phones while scrolling through social media. Of course, there are people who do use their computers, but more so than not, they're on their phones. So just make sure that, say, with a video format, for example, you can do, you know, horizontal format, but you could also consider maybe doing a vertical video format where when they put full screen, it covers the length of their screen, as you see more commonly with video formats such as TikTok or Instagram Reels. That's just an example. But that's one of the ways you could optimize your mobile, uh, or one of the ways you can optimize your ad for mobile um, uh, formats. And of course, going back to kind of how you want to make your ad interactive, another way you can make it more interactive is doing things like polls, quizzes, and making sure at the end of the day you want people to participate or feel inclined to click on something from that ad. Some people love using polls, others like you know, ones where it's using a specific image or comment with a specific emoji. There's a lot of ways you can make your ads or elements of your ad more interactive. And it will, one, either make people click on it for a bit or just let them, engage with it just a little bit longer in comparison to ones that have no buttons or no interaction. Um, and then, of course, we want to use very persuasive copyright. And by that, a few lines should suffice, especially on the imagery itself. You kind of want to be limited on that. However, whatever copyright you do have, you want to make sure it's concise, short, and to the point. Um, I think that one of the points that, people tend to note is like, well, I can put 2,000 characters in my ad, so I should utilize all of it. That's not so much the case. You definitely want to make sure you're writing specifically, just enough where people get the information, get a story, and are interested, and a call to action. But any more than that, it kind of is a bit too much or might be, not as engaging as anymore because a wall of text is always not the most ideal when it comes to ads. Um, and then, of course, if we're going into more of like the video type of content, which I always suggest that it's a bit more interactive and it's a bit more interesting to the eyes when there is movement. When it comes to videos, of course, this can look like a lot of things like we previously mentioned. It could look like tutorials, behind the scenes. It could look like someone's, interaction with the product, but ultimately you want to make sure that there is a good story to the ad, or at least a quick and easy way to convey your product while not feeling so jarringly like we're trying to sell you something immediately. There should be some other points of interest as well. So starting with a strong hook is very ideal. And, the first sentence should just captivate your audience from the get-go. This could be a very compelling imagery, or a compelling question, or maybe something that a customer might ask of, and as a problem, and then you provide the solution thereafter. Um, Showcasing your products creatively, as at least with the print-on-demand world, you want to make sure that your products are showcased in a manner that is compatible with the place that they're in, such as if it's in a home or a very decorative home, make sure that the home matches with the product. If you're showcasing it with the customer, kind of, have the customer dress in a certain way so it makes sense with your product, it makes sense with your target audience. Um, And then going back, you want to make sure that the storytelling or telling the story part aspect is creating a narrative that inclines people to want to buy it. Not so much of like, buy this product now, but, after this ad, do you feel more inclined to buy a product? So, um, making it feel a little bit more seamless in regards to how interesting of a content it is versus how interesting of a product it is. So making sure those two things align is one of the key aspects. Um, you definitely want to demonstrate the customization options, kind of how we previously mentioned product variations. Here, you definitely want to show like, for example, if you do framed canvas, you could say, and if you like this product, we offer it with framed white frame or natural wood frame or black frame. And then if you like this, imagery, you'll love this one. Say you sell customized animal prints. If in that case, then kind of show how you can do cats and dogs, or maybe other pets. So there's ways and methods you can make definitely your narrative and your customization interesting for your customer. Um, of course, a quick interlude of showing social proof, such as reviews or maybe a quick testimonial from a customer. This shouldn't be too long, but it should just be enough for your audience to feel more reassured that what the product that they're being sold of is very legitimate and feels, right. Um, and then, of course, at the end, you want to create a call to action. That could either be in the copyright or in the video format itself, but making sure that you give the customers who are engaged or potential customers who are already engaged a next step, if you will. And so this could look like when the video ends, it then offers a link to your website or a link to the product that was conveyed in that ad. And of course, as mentioned before, we want to keep the story and the video concise and engaging. Ads shouldn't be too long, but if you do decide to create a long ad, at the very least, make sure that the first 15 to 30 seconds are all that a customer needs to know about your product and where they can find your product, and make sure they know about your brand as well. I decided to do just a quick kind of research onto Instagram in particular, and that's mainly because I've seen a lot of our own customers will kind of do a lot of advertising. If not, they tend to find themselves more active on Instagram. And it's a great place to showcase your art and also showcase a brand while also showcasing lifestyles and showcasing other components. So I decided to use Instagram. Of course, if you guys ever are interested in other platforms, do let me know. I'm willing to kind of look into those and see how you can leverage those social media platforms for your art and for your print-on-demand store as well. But I decided to go with Instagram, and um, here are just some aspects that kind of hark back to the previous slide, but just to be more concise with Instagram. As we mentioned, for the copyright, you want to be very short and to the point. So while Instagram ads do allow you to have 2,200 characters on an ad, doesn't mean you should utilize all of them. In fact, for 125 characters, which is recommended, that is basically the above the fold text before it turns into the learn more or open for more scroll up. So or text opener. So if as long as you have all the important information you need within those 125 characters, then the customer doesn't have to open up the text box to know what your company is about. And so it's very important to try to stay around that character limit or that character recommendation that we have, if not making sure that the most important factors of your ad are within those 125 characters. As for the quality and the resolution of your video or image, um, while the minimum is 600, we recommend at the very least a 1080 by 1080 pixel image or video. So that way the images look precise and they look clean and they don't look pixely when a customer is opening them. You kind of want it to look really nice. And if anything, as they're scrolling through the landscape of Instagram, they notice how impeccably well lit, well photographed your images are, because ultimately Instagram is a photo sharing social media website. So you want to make sure your imagery or video is really up to snuff. If you decide to go with the landscape image or video ad, um, try to head for the 1200 by 628 pixels as recommended. That's just going to give you a clean image and or clean video. And one of the last things, and I think is very important, is how many images or videos do you want to include? And while it does depend on the type of ad that you're showcasing, it's great to include a scroll feature. So if you feel like your ad video can be done in multiple segments, then it's worth then making multiple videos and adding it to one ad and having people scroll in through kind of like a story because people tend to interact more with posts and or ads that have the scrolling feature. And by scrolling feature, I mean the ones that scroll horizontally. So you swipe to go to the next part of the image or photo or video, sorry. Um, and so if you decide to do video content and it's like a minute long, but you feel like there's three segments in that video's entirety, then it's worth then making the first part of the video the first idea, and then when they go to the next one, it leads to the second part and then to the third part and so forth. So the scrolling feature is a great feature to use overall, and I know people don't tend to think about that from the get-go when they're doing their Instagram ads, but it's definitely something worth looking into. Okay. That's about it from here for these parts of the idea, but let me stop sharing my video or stop sharing my screen real quick. Okay. Now that we kind of covered a general basis of how, you could work in Instagram's ads, for example, just note quickly, when it comes to Instagram ads, you could also do it on Facebook. If you feel like you have a particularly equal kind of ground on Instagram and Facebook, then feel free to do ad testing on both. But if you know that you're getting much more interaction on one versus the other, then the same stuff that kind of talked about on Instagram's advertisement can then be applied to Facebook if you find yourself a bit more engaged on Facebook in comparison. Um, but now we kind of want to conclude this webinar with kind of talking about how testing this type of ads works. So um, I think the first step is to create objectives for when you make these ads. So, clearly, at the end of the day, you want to make more sales. But what does that look like? Do you want to have more customers acquired by the end of these advertising campaigns? Or do you want to see more people clicking into the product website? Or do you want to see people subscribing to your newsletter more often? Um, Try to create more defined objectives for this. That way you could also see how successful these campaigns were at the end of the day. Um, I think that at least a very good basis is just I want to acquire X amount of customers and I want to have um, X amount of purchases by the end of say a month or 2 months. And if you feel like you're close to that goal at the end of that campaign, or you feel like there's a huge gap, then it's then from there working around to how you can then improve on your optics for that. Um, of course, click-through rates and conversion rates are also really helpful. You can use the social media platform at hand and also the website that you own at hand. So you'll be using the both back ends of those websites to figure out, the logistics of how each advertisement campaign worked. It's also worth utilizing Google Ads features. While it is a free program to use, you could definitely, and it's not just useful for Google Ads, you could also utilize Google for creating specific campaign URLs. That way you can also track those types of URLs available there. So for other items, I think that ultimately you want to keep optimizing. I think 2 weeks is great because what's different about social media is that it has a quick turnaround in terms of seeing how things work. If you notice it's not getting a lot of good bites from customers, then it's time to go back to the drawing board and figure things out. And what's great about social media is like low cost is that you can do several types of ad campaigns at the same time. And do different types of executions and see which one's more successful. So you can do live, real-time, side-by-side comparisons. Of course, I think it's great to start with one and then try a second one later on as you're establishing what works and what doesn't work later into those campaigns. But overall, you do want to make sure that for the most part, this testing doesn't get overwhelming for you because already surveying one type of campaign is could be overwhelming for a first timer. But at the very least, developing it into two types of testing formats is great and will help you kind of figure out what works better at a faster pace compared to other ad campaigns on different other websites. We did get some questions from some customers, and I kind of wanted to address them. So thank you for the submissions. Of course, if you guys have questions as well, feel free to put them into the chat. But let me find that real quick. Oh, there it is. So from Miguel, we had a question about hashtags and how you can utilize hashtags on either Google ad campaigns, not Google, sorry, social media campaigns or your own posts. So just a general basis is that while Instagram allows for a lot of hashtags, doesn't mean you should use all of them. I believe it's 20. And so I know that for some people using a lot of hashtags, you want to reach a large demographic for sure. Um, but I think it's a bit more important to be aware of what type of hashtags works for you. So what you don't want to do is if say you post your artwork on social media because you want to reach more people to get to know your art better, you don't want to use hashtag artist or hashtag art or artist on Instagram. Unfortunately, those are a bit too oversaturated, and when you have those types of tags, you're more susceptible to bots, unfortunately. So if you have a bit more of a concise hashtag that I would say has a medium impact on or medium traffic, those are the really good useful ones to use. Being too specific as well is not useful either. So instead of saying, abstract, hashtag abstract, maybe go with abstract painting or abstract drawing. Or if say you're doing pets, then maybe put in the breed so you'll appeal to people who are interested in that breed of dog. And those are just some examples. Talking about the imagery and how that can appeal to a specific audience, you want to make sure that, that type of hashtag is going to reach the audience that you want or the audience that might be interested in that post. Overall, as well, you kind of want to keep it at max 5 hashtags or around 3 to 5 at the very least. So being mindful of your hashtags, especially if you're thinking about not starting ads just yet, but just posting on your own behalf. Hashtags can be an interesting place to navigate, but what you don't want to do is put too much hashtags that are way too saturated or way too niche. Okay. We got another question from a person named Beth, and uh, she noted how much social media promotion is too much. I personally hate my feed being spammed with self-promotion. And this is something I get a lot from different artists, and I get it. As an artist, you feel weird about promoting yourself, and I completely get it. You might be a little bit embarrassed, or you feel like the art should speak for itself, and that if you promote yourself too much, it might throw off some customers. And I'm just here to reassure you, all your anxieties, people don't mind it if you promote yourself. Ultimately, people who follow you are your fans and people who enjoy your content. So rest assured that when you decide to showcase your products, or hey, you decide to put a new artwork that people loved onto a product that you're going to sell, it's great that you promote yourself, and it's great that you talk to people about things that you're doing with your business. And I think what doesn't feel genuine is when you're only selling products and you're only doing promotions on products in and of itself. But if it's things like, hey guys, I'm going to be at an art fair and look what I did here at this convention, or um, I'm going to be at a gallery. These kinds of things interest people. And while for you it might seem like you're harping on yourself or you're patting yourself on the back too many times, people who follow you and genuinely enjoy your content are going to be well receptive to those points and times. Say you decide to open up an online store, people are going to receive that well. And, adding a story to your own social media page, such as behind the scenes or art processes, or maybe the way you decide to choose specific products for your store, talking a bit more transparently with your audience makes it feel a bit more genuine because at the end of the day, yes, you're selling a product, but you're also selling, in an aspect, your personality and the person that people have come to enjoy from your page. So don't be afraid to self-promote, and especially if this is your first time kind of figuring out how you're going to sell, things on your store and you're just started, self-promotion is not too bad. What I tend to notice as well is that artists tend to create two separate pages. So they'll have their art page and then they'll have their business page. If it works for you, great. But starting out, I think it's fine to have your brand and your own artist page be tied together. Don't feel so reluctant about associating yourself with the brand that you're going to be selling because ultimately people enjoy the person. And if they enjoy the person, they're going to then enjoy the brand. So separating them too much might create some distance, and you don't want to create that, especially as you're starting out. At the very least, as you're starting out, make sure they're kind of together in that aspect. But yeah, let me know if there are any other questions. We are kind of moving into a bi-weekly phase for these webinars. So one week we'll have a webinar, the next week we won't. But that doesn't mean we won't have content either. So we'll be also posting other video formats. I know that we recently have some new products developed. So for example, we have now more paper art prints available to you guys. So go ahead and check out lumaprints.com. We have now Somerset Velvet, Metallic. We had semi matte, and now also we had glossy. So those four items were added to our website. Previously, you could only get them on framed fine art paper prints, but now they're available as regular paper prints. So if you're interested in any of those, go check out our website. We here also offer samples. So if you want to see the papers in person, you could either come to our place here in Anaheim, or I could also send you guys the paper types to you guys via mail. I'm really excited about these papers. Let me actually show you guys one that I really liked. I think I have them here. Yeah. So you might not see the quality all too well, but here's metallic. Yeah, you can't see it at all, but metallic is probably my favorite, for example. So if you have any cool photography that deals a lot with shimmers or metallics, this one has a really cool, slightly iridescent reflection, which is cool. And then glossy photo is great for photography and great for, if you already, work with glossy imagery, or maybe you work on resin. Glossy is really cool. And let's see, semi-matte. Yeah. Semi-matte is a great feature because it's kind of close to the glossy and semi-glossy, but what's great about this one is I think it's a little less shimmery as the glossy, but a little bit more uh, reflective than the semi-glossy. So it's worth checking those out. And then Somerset Velvet is like cold press. So if you have some experience with cold press, then Somerset Velvet is a bit softer on the hands, but just as textury. So if you like cold press, it's worth checking out Somerset. We also have some new frame sizes available to you guys, as in depth and width. So go ahead and check those out as well. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you, Elizabeth. Of course, we're more than happy to answer all your questions. So thank you. But if there are no other questions, then we can conclude this webinar now. I'll see you guys in a couple weeks' time. And should there be any other lingering questions, I will keep the Zoom open for a little bit longer. But right now, we could end it here. So bye, guys.